All right, 9.2. We're only going to do a few of these again. Leave some of them there for practice if you want later. Okay, so we're trying to solve for x. If this was 8 equals just 2x, you know you would divide by 2 because that's the coefficient of x. Same thing here. The coefficient just happens to be a radical. That cancels. So we're left with x equals 8 over radical 2. But we cannot have a radical on the bottom. Just a math rule. So we need to multiply by radical 2 over radical 2. Why is that? Well, on the top we get 8 radical 2. On the bottom, radical 2 times itself is just 2. Think about it. It really is radical 4. That's square root of 4 is 2. And then last but not least, we simplify for radical 2. Let's go over here to number 3. This time, this is a much easier problem. We do have 2x, so we're going to divide by 2. Cancels, and this cancels, leaving me 4, and we're already done. We don't have to do anything with the radical because it is in the numerator, it's in the top of the fraction. Okay, let's go to number 5. No, sorry, number 4. Okay, in this one, we need to divide by what's in front of the x, coefficient. Okay, so this cancels here. Over here I have 5, radical 2 over radical 3. Again, I cannot have radical 3 in the bottom. So I need to multiply by radical 3 on the top and radical 3 on the bottom. Now what does that give me on top? I do inside times inside, so radical times radical gives me 5 radical 6. On the bottom, I'm just left with 3. And since 5 and 3 don't simplify, reduce, I'm finished. Similar problem what we've done here, this just has some decimals, so I'll just do this one. Radical 2. And that cancels here. Again, I cannot have a radical on the bottom. So I do radical 2 over radical 2. And that gives me 8.4 radical 2 over 2. But since 8.4 is divisible by 2, I can just put 4.2 radical 2 as my answer. That's it. Okay, we're going to do one of these. Find x. Now remember, it's telling you to rotate these. Okay. As I remember, I told you before, line up the same letters based on their the little arcs. So A has 3, S has 3. So A and S. That's an 8. And then C has 2, P has 2. And that leaves B and T. Now, we're trying to solve x. We can use any magic ratio. Notice that AC corresponds to SP. Well, that means 10 and 8 correspond to each other. So 10 corresponds to 8. I have this big triangle on top. So I'm trying to find x. So that's 7 over x. And I just cross multiply and divide. 7 times 8. Divide by 10. So x is 5.6. Okay, new stuff. Special triangles. This is called a 45-45-90 triangle. We had called it previously an isosceles triangle. It has 2 matching sides, 2, we call them legs, and specifically this is a right isosceles. Okay? Now it has a very simple relationship here. The legs match, isosceles, and the hypotenuse, the longest side, is always times radical 2 of the leg. And if you're going the other direction, obviously you would divide. So, for example, here's my hypotenuse. That's a mess. Right there, opposite the right angle. Since this is 45, that means this is 45, and if this is 8, this is 8. And the hypotenuse is simply times radical 2. No big deal. On B, though, we're going the opposite direction. Notice we have our isosceles, matching legs. Here's my hypotenuse. So this time, I need to divide by radical 2, which in this case is not too bad. I don't have to do any rationalization because radical 2 divided by itself, x is 5. Okay, next triangle we have is called 30, 60, 90. Now obviously, you can see all three sides are different measurements, x, x root 3, and 2x. Therefore, this is a scalene triangle. It's a right scalene. Now, you always want to start with the shorter side if possible, or get to the shorter side, because everything is based off that. The hypotenuse is double the short side, and the long is the short side times radical 3. Obviously, if we're going to the short side, we would divide by 2 or divide by radical 3. So here we go. The short side is always opposite the smallest angle, 30. So I recommend, here's your 30, I recommend you label, short, hypotenuse, long. This will make your life a lot easier if you just take the time to do that. Okay? Now, remember, the hypotenuse is simply double the short side. We don't have the short side, do we? We have the long side, so we need to work backwards. It's much easier to go from the long to the short and then to the hypotenuse than trying to go from the long to the hypotenuse. So, from here to here, we need to, remember, I'm going to do the work over here, we need to divide by radical 3. Now remember, we can't have a radical on the bottom, so we need to rationalize this. So that gives me 9 radical 3 over simply 3, which cancels. So that means x is 3 radical 3. And now it's the easy part. Going from x to y is just doubling. So y is 6 radical 3. And when we multiply by 2, we only multiply the outside number. Think about it. If this was 3x and we wanted to multiply by 2, we'd end up with 6x. We don't end up with 6x squared or anything like that. It's just 2 times the coefficient. So when we double this, we're just doubling the coefficient. We're not touching the radical. We only do inside by inside. Radicals times radicals. Okay, a little bit of a challenge here. We need to find the area of the triangle. Now it's an equilateral triangle, so we know it's 36 all around. To do the area, we need the base and height. Well, let's call this the base, but we need the height. Now, when I do this, remember, this is a 60, 60, 60 degree triangle. When I draw the height, I've just formed a 90 degree triangle. So what does that leave here? A 30 degree triangle, which makes this the short side. Now, what's the measurement of the short side? Half of 36. So what I have here, I'm just going to redraw it now. Poorly. There's my 18. Okay? And I need to find the height, which is the long side, right? Okay? So here's my 30 degree triangle. This is obviously my short side. I'm trying to find the long side. So remember, the long side is just the short side times radical 3. So this is simply 18 radical 3. Now I have my height, and I have my base. So remember, area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. And now we just plug our information in. Area of our triangle is 1/2 the base, which is 18, times 18 radical 3. Well, half of 18 is 9, and 9 times 18 is 324 square root of 3. Now, since this is a real world problem, and we're trying to find a measurement and area, we do need to just multiply this on our calculator because we need an actual amount. Whoops. So that's going to be 561.18 inches. Square inches area. Now that is a rounded number, but okay, last example. We have this ramp. It's going to be elevated 30 degrees and 45 degrees right here at the tipping angle. So we're going to have two triangles. We're going to have one with a 30-degree angle and one with a 45-degree angle. Now the 80 is the ramp, and we're trying to find the height. Okay? Now 80 is the hypotenuse, the longest side. So this is a 90-degree angle right here. So this is a 30, 60, 90 triangle right here. So the height is the short side, and the hypotenuse is the ramp. Well, this is an easy one because remember, the short side is just half of the hypotenuse. So the height is simply 40 feet. Now over here on this one, these are matching. But remember, when you go from the hypotenuse to the height here, you need to do 80 divided by radical 2. Now, since this is a real world problem, we do not need to mess with rationalizing this because we need an actual measurement. So we just type this in our calculator and we get 56.6 feet. And that's all.